Now, paraphrasing is different than summary, and the main difference is that in summary, we are condensing the information. A paraphrase is going to be about the same length of material. It's just going to be in our own words. We can use this when the language is too complex for the average person. So if we read, say, a sentence and we want to use that sentence, but we found that we have to reread it 3 or 4 times for it to make sense, we don't want our readers to have to read it 3 or 4 times. So we're going to change it into easier words or easier terms to understand. We write to a general audience, so we need to translate difficult material to that audience. If we think about newspapers, they often write to about an 8th grade level because they're trying to get as many readers as possible to understand this material. Okay, we're going to be writing to a college level audience, so that could include freshmen who are not familiar with some of the language in these articles. So you might need to paraphrase in order for it to make sense to that audience. You want to remain consistent to the message. Just like with a summary, you don't want to interpret the information, you don't want to weigh in on the information. We're presenting that paraphrase and then we can start to comment on it. Okay, but we're not commenting within the paraphrase itself. A paraphrase should be objective, it should be factual, just like a summary. This also can be used when a quote becomes too messy. We're going to learn about quotes and we're going to see ways that we're going to have to change a quote in order for it to make sense. To do this, we might add ellipses, we might put words in brackets, and if we're doing this too much, we get what's called a Frankenstein quote. If you get a Frankenstein quote, which looks like this, we can see that we have a lot of brackets here, a lot of ellipses. It'd be much better just to paraphrase this because it's going to look better to your reader. So instead of saying ISU ellipses has a lot of students who ellipses run through the quad in brackets for fun, ellipses in the summer, we could just say something like when the weather is warm, many students are seen running through the quad. Okay, I'm putting that into my own words. Paraphrasing, however, is the place where I catch most plagiarism. And I don't believe it's purposeful. I believe it's accidental plagiarism. But there are steps that we can take in order to avoid that from happening. The first thing is you know it has to be in your own words. If it's in your own words, you're not going to be cited for plagiarism. And there's a way that we can guarantee it's in our own words. We want to read the material until you know it, maybe 2 or 3 times, because you don't want to memorize the line or the sentence that you're using. You just want to read it till you understand it. Then put it away, close the book, turn over the paper, make sure you cannot see that sentence or that quote anymore. Then rephrase it in your own words. Okay, write it in your own words, write it the way that you would say it. And then finally, go back and make sure that no phrasing was carried over. So again, we might have memorized a line or two or a phrase. We don't want to carry that phrase over. We want to make sure it's completely into our own words. If you follow these steps, it will be likely that you won't be cited for plagiarism. In a previous PowerPoint that I'd made a long time ago, I gave examples, and in my example, I had actually plagiarized. I carried over some phrasing. And I know the reason I did this is because I still had that material in front of me. And I looked at the source, and then I wrote pretty much what I saw in that source material. So you want to make sure that you do put it away to avoid plagiarism. Let's look at this line here. So let's say that this is couple of sentences that we want to paraphrase. It says, microdermabrasion is another way to remove brown spots. By gently abrading the skin with ultrafine crystal particulates, microdermabrasion can reduce unwanted pigmentary changes and age spots. It can also benefit acne patients in the same way. Because we might determine that this language is a little too difficult for our readers, and we want to put it in better terms for them to understand. So we'll look at maybe that first sentence. Microdermabrasion is another way to remove brown spots. So we can arrange this in our own words that says, one way that a person can get rid of annoying brown spots is to use a system such as microdermabrasion or taking small layers off the skin. Okay, you can see that I'm trying to put this into my own words. Then we could go to that second sentence. By gently abrading the skin with ultrafine crystal particulates, microdermabrasion can reduce unwanted pigmentary changes and age spots. So if we're going to paraphrase that, we could say age spots are often a dark coloring on the skin. And what microdermabrasion does is it takes off small layers of the skin until it removes all of that dark spot. So it's kind of like scraping that spot off using these diamond-like components. Okay, is this perfect? Maybe, maybe not. I'm just kind of creating it as I read this. That's what we're doing in the paraphrase. And then afterwards, we're going to go back to the original material. We're going to make sure we didn't carry anything over. So for paraphrasing, make sure that you go through those 4 steps, read it until you know it, put it away, write it in your own words, and then go back and check to make sure that you still didn't carry anything over. If you do this, you'll be fine. I do want you to try out paraphrasing in this class. If you do plagiarize, I will point it out. I might make you redo it if there's a lot of it in the paper. And I might take off minimal points, but I want you to understand how this works in this class where there's not going to be as serious consequences as if you plagiarize in future classes. I expect you to fix your mistakes, but I'm not going to assume that it's purposeful plagiarism at this point.